Welcome everyone. Thanks for joining us in this exploration of the SendPulse platform and how automating your community or membership site with SendPulse is something that does not only make sense, it is probably one of your best options out there. We've been SendPulse partners for around 3 or 3.5 years now, and it's been a very exciting journey, and we have only good things to say about the SendPulse platform. And we'll share some of what we've done over the last 3 years with you in the next couple of slides. Before we dive into that, we're going to just touch briefly on what the agenda is, and we're going to look at, how do we define a community, and what sits around a community, and why is it that we want to automate community interactions, or at least some of them, in terms of our day-to-day operations. So, as Alina said, I am the founder of Commix Digital Nexlo Technology Solutions. We're based in just outside of Cape Town in South Africa, and we serve a client base across the world in various support and development tasks. Particularly, we are passionate about integration and marketing automation. So we're going to touch on those two specifically today, but we'll deal with some of the other topics or other tools within the SendPulse platform briefly as well. So obviously, when you do presentations like this, you need to write a bio, and it's not necessarily something I consider myself to be very good at. So I asked my assistant to do that, and this is what he or she or it came up with. So I think we've covered some of that, but ultimately, I think the point there being that it's all about integrations, it's all about marketing automation, and it's all about building a unique customer journey that is fit for your business and fit for your community, and not leaning on external platforms or external solutions, but rather building something that is unique to you, and then ultimately something that you own and that you can monetize when you get to the point that your community is at a stage that monetization is feasible. So we'll jump into the agenda quickly. So welcome introduction very quickly, why automation matters, an overview of the SendPulse tools, a bit of a deep dive into the idea, although the agenda may change as we go along depending on the questions and the feedback. Some practical demos of what we've done, and then we'll do some Q&As and closing remarks to just close it all off. So at the bottom there, you'll see that I've highlighted between two asterisks, membership sites tech stack. So we're we generally build membership sites on WordPress, which allows us, obviously, the open source WordPress code and the ability to adapt that code to just about any need. Although that's what we do, obviously a lot of the other platforms do have APIs, so you can still integrate with whether it's Wix or any of the other platforms, but we have a strong relationship or strong support in terms of the WordPress environment, which ultimately lets us own that code and adapt it as we need. Why that's important is because we can write API endpoints in WordPress that can expose data that may not be possible when you use other hosted platforms. And at the end of it, you end up sort of owning that solution as opposed to it being a third-party solution. So just keep that in mind as we go through. So community and platform ownership, what is a community? So shared interest and touch points is essentially what it's all about. And secondly, we need to create purpose before profit. So we can talk about automating a platform, but if we don't talk about why we're creating a platform, we might be missing some of the key points around the reasons why certain of those flows need to be automated. So creating purpose before profit is about having an environment where there's support and community around whatever the touch point or the shared interest is. So in a lot of the examples we're going to cover later, we're going to look at sports clubs where obviously there's a shared interest in whatever the sport is that we're covering, but without some sort of purpose, then profit and ultimately followers are unlikely to join you. So let's just we can't have a scenario of believing that we can build something and people will come. We need to have a purpose before we start the process, and be clear on what that is, so that we can make it possible for our members to engage with us on that specific topic. So why build a community platform as opposed to using an existing one? Well, I think there are a couple of reasons, and here are some of them. Number one is you don't own the audience if you run your community on Facebook or LinkedIn, for example. You only reach around 1 in 10 of them with posts, if in a normal sort of feed scenario. So you've got to be very, very aware of the fact that when you use supposedly free tools, they do come at a cost that is often a lot more expensive than when you've taken the time to actually build that yourself. Your limited branding experience, obviously, that I think you all can understand and know what we're talking about there. You're obviously directly in competition with a lot of other communities because you're all on the same platform, and in fact, nothing stops the other competing communities to directly work to poach your members. So there are some privacy risks which exist outside of that as well, but in this case, I think the data is often used for potentially in a more exploitative way than what it would be if you had your community interests at heart, or really at heart for that matter. Obviously, platform dependency. You don't choose when new features are introduced, and you don't choose when old features are sunsetted. So be aware of that as well, because those ultimately determine how your community will experience or will interact with you, and you don't really have a say on that roadmap. I must say that in the SendPulse environment that we've been working for the last 3.5 years, we've often seen that we have real-time and regular sort of engagement with the SendPulse, and when we identify areas where there can be improvements or adjustments, the team has really jumped on that and very quickly, in many cases, made those changes or added features that from an agency or from a business perspective that we felt would be highly valuable within the platform and to other businesses as well. So next then, so why build your own? So BYO, why build your own? It's about ownership. You own the community, you own the data, and ultimately you monetize that community. So you'll see in point 4, we talk about monetization control, and that's about who ultimately earns the money off that community. So community monetization is very much a strategy that we see jumping or growing quite rapidly, where people have the need to engage and the people have the need to belong, and they want to do that in a space that is safe and that they feel that the interest is really sort of considered, and it's not just a sort of advertising and monetization perspective, but there's actually purpose first. So by going build your own, obviously we have the opportunity of integrations, and then tools like SendPulse that make it possible for us to do a whole list of things become viable, and they also provide us with exceptional functionality at low cost. And SendPulse is a sort of extensive API or public API documentation and availability means that we can do a whole lot of things without having to build that into our own platform. So we can lean on the SendPulse platform to do well what they do well, and we can lean on our own platform to do what we want to do in a unique way and what our members value. So again, there's a little emphasis there around API first. So just keep in mind that throughout this conversation, primarily we're always going to say you need to make your decisions on an API first basis. Whether you're choosing to build your own platform, whether you're choosing to integrate with the platform, or whether you're choosing a third-party marketing automation platform, the ability to integrate that with your current systems and with other systems is key to building successful businesses in the 21st century. Let's jump onto why to automate. So now we've spoken about why we want to, why community and why do we build community platforms and so on. And ultimately, you've got a following and you want to monetize that. And in the beginning, maybe it's 10 or 20 or 100 people, and you can sort of manage that in your own. But at some point, you get to a number where you can't manage that on your own again. We run multiple platforms around South Africa of some of the largest clubs in the country, and also some of the largest clubs in the world, where the number of members certainly make it impossible for us to personally deal with every single scenario. So the clubs have automated a lot of their processes, and the result is that we can run clubs in excess of 6,000 people with one single person working half day. And to a large extent, that's really just about sort of making something or a space physically available where people can still purchase certain things, but also where they can collect certain things. And it's more a choice than it is a necessity. In other cases, we run clubs where we essentially don't have staff, and we run in excess of 4,500 members. So automation can make your world a whole lot easier, and it's something that is effectively not negotiable when you get to a certain level of community size or membership. And I think that's sort of where we need to talk about why we automate. It's about dealing effectively, efficiently, and consistently with our members. And that may take different shapes and forms, and may take different flows. But ultimately, it comes down to we need to be consistent, and we need to make sure that members get what they need when they need it, and that we don't end up losing members as a result of that not being available. So manual onboarding being a big issue, in the club space, for example. So it causes delays and an inconsistent experience. Communication all across multiple channels can be a challenge. Renewal reminders. I mean, to remind 100 or 1,000 or 10,000 people to renew their memberships is not something you want to do manually, and it's something that can easily be automated. And of course, you don't have platforms without partners, and without partners reaching the right people, your platform becomes less valuable to them. So in a community space, obviously we've got users on the one side, and ultimately we end up having partners on the other side in various forms, and we need to engage the two to create value for them. So why automate? Simple. We save time, we personalize member journeys, and we create always-on engagement experiences. Next up, we talk about what we're not going to cover today, and we're not going to talk about templates and tool setup within the SendPulse platform. So SendPulse has a wide variety of templates that you can use that can do a whole lot of things. So if you are sort of new to the space and you're keen to explore the platform, do look up the template side, and you'll find a lot of setup templates that are very valuable and could already help you do a lot of the things that we are discussing today. Tool setup in general, we're also not covering today. Again, that's something that there's enough documentation, and the SendPulse team will help you to get that sorted when you are in the process of onboarding with them. What we are going to look at is why SendPulse, and ultimately when you have to manage multiple clients or you have to manage big communities, and you do a lot of the development stuff yourself, you do a lot of the development work yourself, you want a platform that is wide enough that you can deliver multiple services without having to jump between them. So the width of the SendPulse platform is attractive, being sort of from an automation to email to CRM to the transactional mailers to the other. So SMTP, CRM, chatbots, automation, and email are the ones that we're covering specifically. But there's also an education side where courses and so on can be loaded, and you can follow through with that. So there are lots of other things as well, but the width of the platform is something that was very attractive to us when we compared various options against each other. The learning curve in the SendPulse platform was considerably lower for us than other platforms, and ultimately when time is money and you're building your own tools, or you're building your own automations, or you're building your own integrations, you want to have solutions that support sort of a low learning curve, that make it possible to experiment and explore and prototype and repeat that quickly without large or big learning curves. The modular pricing is obviously very attractive because you can pay for what you use and not for anything else. Whereas many other platforms, you end up paying for a wide range of services, of which you don't use half of them. In this case, you pay for what you use and not anything else. So the tools that we're going to cover, email automation, chatbot, CRM, and SMTP, the transactional emails, which is a sort of non-negotiable if you start to go past a certain level. In fact, from day one, I want to encourage you to use transactional emails in this space, because ultimately your emails not reaching their customers or reaching your community members ultimately lead to all kinds of trouble. So those are the tools that we're going to cover, and in various ways what we've done with them over the last couple of years. So build your own platform solutions. So the usual suspects when we talk automation in a platform solution space is, of course, what do we do with signups? Onboarding. So someone signs up, someone joins. How do we deal with that? How do we automate that? How do we onboard them? And then the other usual suspect, of course, is engagement, because what is useful or what is important in the platform space is not the number of users that your platform has. It's about the number of active users. So active users obviously being people that visit regularly and engage and interact, and not someone that signed up and never returned, because ultimately that sign up is not valuable in the bigger scheme of things when we don't have the interactions that we need. So on the right-hand side there, you'll see a typical onboarding email that we create. So in this case, when a member joins one of our clubs, they'll receive, and this happens they'll purchase a membership via the WordPress platform. That data will be pushed into SendPulse, where we've generated this template that's then populated with the relevant data from WordPress and fired off to the member to collect their membership board from the selected collection location. So this can obviously take various shapes, and in the automation space within SendPulse, we can then, in a week's time or a day's time or a month's time, whatever the case may be, we can send follow-up emails, and we can build entire automation flows around whatever that topic may be. So this is a very basic sort of entry-level, or not entry-level, but very basic starting mailer that will go out, and that'll kick off our sort of interaction with our member. The nice part about the SendPulse platform is that this is completely customizable, and it can fit your brand look and feel. And we've got amazing tools to see whether that notification has been delivered, whether it's been clicked, and then if there were any issues, what those were. So that those are sort of the usual suspects. But I think what we want to try and cover in this topic is some of the more interesting things that we've done, and really try and create an environment to make it clear what is possible out there, as opposed to sort of just repeating what is maybe available very often. So here are some of the interesting things that we've done over the last couple of years in that space. Number one there is ER24. So the ER24 integration is effectively an integration into a emergency services group in South Africa, where we report to them directly into their communications hub, or their communication center, their war room, so to speak. We report into them via the WhatsApp bot that we've created for the specific club. We report a name, telephone number, location, photo, and we'll look at what that looks like in a second. And then the GPS locations, obviously, of where that specific incident has happened. And that allows the medical response unit to know exactly where they need to go to reach out to that individual or whoever's with them, and to be able to do that in a matter of minutes, or in fact in seconds. We generally get those response calls within 10 seconds, and then with ambulance or chopper or whatever the case may be, support then being dispatched as soon as that's been verified by a conversation with the specific client. Digital passes have become a very important part of integrations for various reasons. One of them is that we've seen a lot more interactions and a lot more sales around WhatsApp as a channel. So the WhatsApp channel being the selling channel for many of our clients, and then ultimately that then being generated into, or that then creating a digital pass or an event ticket, which then is scanned at the door, whether that's a movie ticket, whether that's a membership card, whether that's an event ticket that's scanned at the door or at the gate or whatever the case may be, to prove that it's valid. And ultimately that streamlines the entire process around how we interact and how we engage on the event side. Maintenance request is again something at a club level. And what happens with maintenance requests is that we use WhatsApp again as a channel where we can pinpoint the reporting member's location using the WhatsApp location function. We ask for some questions about what the issue is that needs to be fixed. And then ultimately we channel that information into a CRM, which is then assigned to various groups within the organization to ensure that the maintenance requests are carried out. As soon as a member reports something, it will be reported to the relevant groups through our automation setup in SendPulse. And as soon as the maintenance request team has accessed it, or as soon as the maintenance request team has delivered on that request, as soon as they move that into a different space in the CRM. So if they change the stage of that specific maintenance request, then obviously the member will get a notification saying that we are working on it or that it's been completed or whatever the case may be. So closing the loop in terms of making sure that everyone's aware of what needs to happen and when it's happened, and that ultimately becomes a resolved issue. Lastly, member-only content. Again, we use WhatsApp as a channel, and that then queries our WordPress database to verify membership and then returns gate codes, riding times when, sunset and sunrise times, which allows access, and a whole host of other topics that covers that sort of thing as well. So jumping onto the next one then. Some examples of what this looks like in practice. So this is the ER24 integration, and as you can see, there's some WhatsApp screenshots there. On the left-hand side, we start by responding or sending help to a WhatsApp chatbot. You'll then see a little response saying, obviously help comes at a cost and so on, and if you don't have medical aid and so on, you need to consider whether you want to personally fund that or whatever the case may be. Once you then continue, it asks you to share a PIN. As you can see, there's a PIN shared. Next, it asks you to share an image of a landmark close to you so that the response team can actually find you. And once that's done, you can, on the second image, you can see that we've then gone and we've then posted that into the ER24 database, and then we've got a response code or a reference number, and we can then follow up if that's necessary at a later point. On the right-hand side, you'll see the team, all of the team members that have been designated to be part of the response team within the club would then get the messages saying that there's been an emergency incident. Here's the PIN. Here's the image. This is who requested medical assistance, and this is the number you can reach them on. So suddenly, the whole response and emergency reporting scenario becomes a lot more effective within that community to ensure that we can easily get help to people that need it from the relevant stakeholders within the bigger environment. So on the right-hand side is just a basic menu of what that looks like. So you'll see point 1 on the menu there is report an emergency, which will then trigger that screen you see on the very left-hand side. So that's an example of how you can use a third-party service provider to ensure that your community members are looked after in a way that is comforting for them and that is provides them with the ease and comfort to use your environment without fear of not being able to report incidents when they do occur. So next example, event ticketing or passes. So what happens here is on the left-hand side, we've got the club environment again. On the right-hand side, we've got the more hospitality type of focus. On the left-hand side, what happens is that we use WhatsApp as a channel. The member requests to get their digital membership card issued. Again, the system through the SendPulse platform will go and query the database, the WordPress database, to ensure that the member is a valid paid-up member. And if so, it will then come back and say, well, yes, we've recognized you're a member. This is your membership number. Please upload the image you want to use on your digital membership card. It will then post all that information into a third-party pass environment and then return a link, as you can see at the bottom of the first screenshot, to the member, who can then download it to their Apple Wallet or to their Pass Wallet or Google Wallet environment. On the right-hand side, we're using the SendPulse products within the chatbot environment. And ultimately, that is then delivered into a pay screen or a payment link. And once that's completed, the member again gets a link where they can download their passes from and then present that at the event or at the movie or whatever it is that they're attending. So that would be some of the examples to use how we can integrate with third-party services around digital passes. You'll see the pass on the right-hand side is expired because that will always be set based on the date that the event is, and then at 11 or 12 o'clock of that night, then obviously that ticket will expire and will no longer be valid. And then your staff on the floor will not have challenges of allowing people in that's not supposed to be there. So your community around wine clubs or your community around events and so on can then quite easily engage with you and join you at these events without having to print anything, without having to struggle around proving that they have the right to be at your event. Example number 3, we've touched on quickly earlier. So in the same context, you'll see we use that same menu. On that menu, we've got something called maintenance request, which is number 2. Number 2 then allows someone to respond or report a maintenance request on the trails, which may be anything from a broken bridge to a fallen tree or whatever the case may be. But they'll respond using some of the codes you'll see down there. They'll share an image with us and they'll share a pin with us, and that will then be fed back into the SendPulse CRM, as you can see on the right-hand side, with a date, a time, a location, and then what needs to be done. So, and as that moves through the different stages, we again send feedback to the members to ensure that they know that this is being taken care of, and ultimately then ensuring that they have faith in the community to look after the environment that they've created for their members. So, right, next up, we have got member-only content. So again, SendPulse or the WhatsApp channel being a primary channel here. What it does, it is queries our database of memberships to verify that someone is a paid-up member. Once that's returned, so you can see on the screenshot on the left-hand side, it's going to tell you that it's going to verify if you're a member, and if it's successful, it's going to return the latest gate codes to you. So again, providing access, but making sure that access is limited only to people that should have access and not to everyone. So those are some examples of various ways of using automation, the automation solution, the CRM, and email, as well as chatbots and SMTP in the SendPulse space to engage with either third-party platforms or with your own data to generate flows or to generate solutions that ultimately speak to your community and their needs. So now let's jump on to the next one. So that is, in short, that is what we cover for content today. So I'm sure we have got some questions, and then let's dive into that, and then we've got some time for that to wrap all of that up. Alina, I'm going to jump into the comments here on the right-hand side. So I see there are some questions here. Can I dive into that?
Yeah, Jaco, thank you very much. Thank you very much for your presentation, for examples. Really interesting, and I should look at it one more time. Really interesting. And yeah, shall we start with the questions? I can see a couple of questions in the chat. So the first one is there an effective automated flow for reactivating inactive members? What does it look like?
Yeah, I think the challenge with that is the flow is maybe not as much the issue as the question as to why the member is inactive. So if you become inactive in a community, it's either because you don't find value there or the relationships aren't important enough. So I think the question is not as much the flow as it is whether the member finds value in your community. So it's a bit of a two-sided one. So I think first question is maybe just finding out whether there are some challenges that the members have that we can deal with first. But yes, there are lots of different flows that we can generate. I mean, I think that uh, the biggest thing to take away from today's session is that the solutions that you can build on SendPulse is really limited only by your creativity. There's very little that you can't do on the SendPulse platform. So it's maybe a case of saying, well, I mean, this member hasn't engaged with me for a week or two or three. Let's give him access to some event to come and try and get him to feel part of that community again. And from there on, get him to, or her for that matter, to start interacting again. So then there are different ways, but ultimately it's going to come down to you engaging that member. And the flows should, I don't think you could just automate building those sort of bridges. I think some of those bridges you need to understand first why there's a disconnect, and once you've established that, you can ultimately build some flows to try and bridge that.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. So, the next question is how can automation support member onboarding in a way that feels personal?
Yeah, I think personal is a function of the data that you have ultimately. So I mean, it can't feel personal if we don't have data. The more data you have, the more personal the conversations would or the more personal the onboarding would seem. So I think using direct sort of language, using names, using uh, what we know about the person would make it feel personal. So I think you don't just have a general sort of conversation, or don't have a general mailer that says hi. Use a name next to that, or use what you have in terms of data on the member to make it personal. So all of that functionality is there. It's a case of how you implement it. And that's going to make the difference between whether it feels personal or not personal. So harvesting the data is one, or having the data is one. Using it in a way that makes it personal is number two. But you can absolutely do that.
So, just to gather some data about that and use variables. Okay, thank you. And interesting question from Ahmed. Can you tell us what are the best advantages of SendPulse over other competitors? Jaco, why do you use SendPulse?
Yeah, I think Olina may even be better equipped to answer this than what I am. But I think I did mention on slide number, let me just see what it is here, slide number 9. So Ahmed, the reason why we use SendPulse is simple, and we've got 3 reasons for it. It's a width of the platform, so it's a number of, yeah, let's jump back to that quickly. It's the width of the platform, so the number of integrated services that SendPulse provides. It's the ease in terms of how quickly you can learn to use SendPulse, so the learning curve, and ultimately the modular pricing structure. So those are the 3 reasons why we use SendPulse, and we decided on SendPulse after sort of evaluating a whole ton of different platforms, 3.5 years ago, and we haven't looked back since.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you for the question, Ahmed. So I can see any other questions in the chat. Guys, we have about 10, 15 minutes to answer your questions. Meanwhile, I have several questions. And the first question from me will be, many marketers and community managers worry about sending too many emails, notifications about some events. And from your experience, what the right balance between staying visible and not being annoying?
Yeah, I think it depends on a couple of things, and I think it depends on the type of community. I think it depends on what you, how you know, what your community is about. Because in some communities we engage daily, but in some communities we maybe only engage monthly. You know, so I think we need to find that balance based on what our community requirements are. Some communities where we have, you know, for example, we've got Tuesday running clubs. You know, you need to communicate with that, you know, group, you know, at least twice a week around times, venues, those sort of things. But if we have an event that happens once a year, we don't have to speak to them every week, you know. And especially if there's no other relationship with that specific customer. You know, if it's an event that happens once a week and that's a community that we're with them, then once a month in terms of updates on how we're progressing and organizing the next event or whatever is probably more than enough, you know. So I think we've got to find a balance based on what your community's needs are.
Yeah, thank you. Really makes sense. And one more question in the chat here from Mikey. Can I make a sequence with email and SMS to work seamlessly?
I don't see why not.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, we don't use SMS extensively anymore, Mikey, because we just find that the read rate and the engagements around WhatsApp is so much higher. We primarily build on WhatsApp, and it's not because we favor it; it's because our customers favor it, and ultimately, we have a 99% plus read rate on those messages and engagement. So, so we don't generally use SMS anymore. We do use SMS in our 24 integration that we spoke about earlier. And that is simply because we want to make sure that everyone is notified. So we send an SMS, we send an email, and we send a WhatsApp to all of the relevant parties. So if, for example, you don't have an internet connection, you'll get the SMS. If you don't get the WhatsApp, you'll get the email. So in that space, we do it. And we don't have any reason, I can't give you any reason why that won't work. It certainly works for us.
Yeah, thanks. Thank you for the question, Mikey. So, and we still have some time for your questions, guys. So, Jaco, if you had to recommend one simple automation that saves the most time for community managers, what would it be? What to start with?
Yeah, so I think one of the interesting ones, Alina, is that, you know, up until 2 years ago, what happened in on the club side in South Africa is that you would go to a venue or you would go online, you would enter all of your details, you would buy a permit, or you would pay, then you would have to go and collect a permit that someone would have to issue to you physically, and someone would have to, you know, check and so on and so on. So we've introduced last year a new version of that where you can, via WhatsApp, you can simply send the text renew, and then based on your cell phone number, it will go and see if you were a member last year. If it was, it will pull all of your details. It will verify those details with you. It will present you with a payment link. And once you've paid, it will issue a new number. So the entire process for you to renew your membership now takes less than 90 seconds, where previously it would have taken you probably 10 to 15 minutes online to enter all of your information, then to drive to go get your permit and all the rest of it. So, and it's generated more than R1 million in the first month that it was available. So the public certainly liked it.
Yeah, sounds really great. Thank you for sharing. Okay, and one more question from me. So we have 10 minutes to end, and just guys, if you have any questions, please let us know in the chat. Okay, and how businesses test their automations before rolling them out to all members?
Yeah, I think you should always have sort of an internal group or a small group of sort of trusted users that that you expand to as soon as you've gone through sort of your final testing. So generally what we do is we'll obviously build it, then we'll test it internally, and then we'll get one or two of our at the client. We'll get a small group of people at the client to start testing it. And once they're sort of happy with it and they sign it off, then we know that it's been tested by 20 or 30 people, and then we roll it out. So I think you've got to have an internal group that obviously does the first round of testing, but you've got to have a second round of people that involve some of the client's staff members that is sort of your trusted group of making sure that everything works as intended.
Yeah, not that complicated. Thank you. So there is no questions in the chat, more questions. So maybe we can conclude. And Jaco, so maybe you want to leave us with something to highlight something before we wrap up.
Yeah, I think for me, ultimately, I think there's a big opportunity in community. I think people have a need to belong, but I think the opportunity in communities is not in terms of managing communities on third-party platforms. It's about building your community and owning your community and monetizing your community, and using partners like SendPulse that provide a platform to ensure that you can do that using multiple channels, various automations that are really as flexible as you can hope for anything to be. And therefore provide you with all of the tools for you to build a successful business around your community, with relatively low technical skills, because ultimately, the SendPulse platform is actually a no-code platform. It's not for those of you that sort of are still interested in getting into the space and you haven't used it, SendPulse is effectively a no-code platform, but it is also at the same time powerful enough to allow us to do things that are very technical and does require some programming in various places. But you can certainly set it up without any significant technical knowledge, and then start to grow it from there.
Yeah, thank you very much. I like it. Thank you. Thank you for your presentation. Thank you for your ideas, examples. And thank you all guys so much for joining us today as we explored the exciting world of community automation. And we hope you are feeling inspired and empowered. And if you have any more questions or want to dive deeper into today's topic, don't hesitate to reach out to Jaco. Also, SendPulse community is always here to help you succeed. So stay tuned, exciting things ahead. So catch you later, take care, and stay awesome. Thank you, and
excellent.
Bye.
Thanks, Elena. Thanks everyone for joining.
Bye. Thank you.
Goodbye.